Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Radha Rupral. It's a pleasure to host another one of these People First Talks. For those of you who are new to the People First space, this community is a growing coalition of actors. We now have 500 organizations and individuals across sectors and around the world who believe in this idea that if we wish to achieve sustainable development, we have to invest in people and the leadership of people, and particularly the leadership of those who are local and most proximate to the challenges. And so over the last year, we've been having this series of People First Talks, connecting with practitioners from around the world on these two questions. What is that leadership we need, and what does it take to cultivate it? And so today I'm pleased to introduce our special guest for today's call, Martin Burt. Martin has an impressive resume. He's waving at us here today. Martin, in 1985, in Paraguay, started Fundación Paraguay. And this foundation, which he'll tell us a little bit more about, was designed to solve poverty through entrepreneurship. And they pioneered programs in microfinance, developed other programs to foster entrepreneurship. Martin's also had an impressive career in the public service, both serving as chief of staff to the former president and also as mayor of one of Paraguay's largest cities. And Martin's most recent effort is something called Poverty Stoplight, which he'll tell us a lot more about. But what's exciting about this is it's a new approach to addressing poverty that puts the agency back in the hands of the families, of the folks who are actually facing the challenges, to both identify their challenges and come up with solutions. And I think that's a conversation we've been having through these People First Talks. How do we again think about agency in the hands of those who are most proximate to the challenges? So it'll be a great chance to build on some of the conversations we've had so far. So for those of you who haven't joined these talks before, how this will work is I'll host a conversation with Martin for the next 30 minutes or so. And then after that, we will open it up to questions. So get your questions ready, put them in the chat even along the way, and we'll bring them into the space. All right, Martin, with that, I'd love to just get right into it. So welcome, thanks for joining us. Maybe I'll just start by asking you to share a little bit about your journey, and particularly about what brought you to developing the Poverty Stoplight, and what's the big idea behind that?
Well, thank you, Radha. And before I start, I'd like to say hello. Thank you for having me here, and say hello to dear friends. I see Gary Scherer is there, Lara Berg, Wendy Kopp, whole bunch of people who have been part of our journey as well. So we're learning all the time. And as the poem Ithaca by Cavafy says, when you set out on your journey to Ithaca, pray that the journey is long. So it's about the journey. It's about the learning. It's about raising one's awareness and seeing things that were always right there in front of our nose, and we, for some strange, mysterious reason, we couldn't see it before. So just like we are permanently realizing, why didn't I think of this 10 years ago? And I would have saved myself a lot of it has to do with poverty. And people are people. And the first thing about the Poverty Stoplight is the realization that we are all poor. And it's not us, the non-poor, and them, the poor. So the Poverty Stoplight grew out of a contradiction, as the Marxists would say, between our microfinance program that we had been funding for 30 years and our agricultural high school. We have 3 self-sufficient agricultural high schools. And in our agricultural high schools, that, this is a concept of education that pays for itself, we found that young men and women would levitate out of poverty without money. It's their chip, their awareness changed, and the capacity to say, I will become a veterinarian doctor or things like that. And yet their parents could have been selling tortillas for 30 years and were stuck. So we found that all the definitions from the international development organizations were if not wrong, completely incomplete. And we found that the emperor has no clothes. That is the biggest realization. The emperor has no clothes. So we have to question the Sustainable Development Goals. And we have to question the Multidimensional Poverty Index. And we have to question the World Bank. And that's our job. We can be nice about it, but we can, this is our work as social entrepreneurs. So basically we started asking our microfinance client, in addition to income, what to you it is to be not poor? And they said, oh, you have to have education, you have to have a house, you have to have public transportation, all the things that we expected. And then they kept on going and they said, oh, you have to have self-esteem. You have to control your emotions. You have to have a plan. You have to, wow, okay. But tell me, honestly, lady, what's more important? Controlling your emotions or drinking water? Well, of course, controlling your emotions. Excuse me? Excuse me? Yes. Motivation is more important than money. Controlling your emotions is more important than, wow. And so we realized that people were very aware of objective indicators and subjective indicators, and they swore that they were as important. And I said, okay, so fine. So how are we going to, and so we developed a visual survey. We realized that we could not have an extractive survey like everybody has, like a census or whatever, because it's very difficult to gauge somebody else's self-esteem. So we said, how about if we make a survey that they can measure themselves? And we said, okay, that's right. But they are functional illiterates. Okay, let's use pictures and colors. And we came up with a visual survey. This is the one that for the US. And so we have family savings, green, yellow, or red. And the family, it takes them about a second to realize where they are of red. We live in a safe home, yellow. We have regular means of transportation, red. We feel safe in our house, red. We eat nutritious food, sometimes, yellow. And this, because of technology, we can do the unthinkable. Because there is technology today, the poor can measure their own poverty. This is revolutionary. It's revolutionary both in substance and in form. And then instead of aggregating data and creating a poverty index, I did not realize this. We create a dashboard that disaggregates data. And then we say, well, why does the World Bank use a poverty index? Well, because they are decision makers at the top and they need to aggregate data. But the decision makers at the family household level, they need a dashboard. And this dashboard is as scientific as an index. And it is, so this family, for example, is she a poor family? Well, she's not poor in a whole bunch of things. She's poor in a few things, and she's very poor in a few other things. And I was at the World Economic Forum one day. Just goes to show you, because these things just keep on coming. I was talking to a Swiss economist, and he said, oh, just like Anna Karenina. And I said, excuse me? Yeah, just like Anna Karenina. What do you mean? Well, the novel by Leo Tolstoy. Yes, I know they tried to force me to read it in high school. It was too thick. I suggest you read it. What's the first line, Martín? The first line. And what's the first line? And then I came home and the first line, all happy families are alike and each unhappy family is unhappy in their own way. Bingo. Bingo. Every family, including you and me, are poor in our own way. So we have to celebrate the fact that neighbors or sisters from the same family living in next door houses can have a different. And so this is very important. And Martín Ravalion, the economist from the World Bank, actually said, yeah, dashboards are as important as indexes. Well, in a car, you don't have one number in front of your thing. You have many things. You have oil and gas and speed and RPM and yeah. Perfect.
Martin, this is incredible because it's basically, you're saying again, we're not taking top-down indicators, but we're recognizing that every family and every situation is unique. And what I love about what you're doing is then it's putting the agency back in the hands of those who are facing the challenges. So can you walk us through what that looks like? So now you've got this the stoplight. What does it look like?
No, I don't have it. The family.
Yeah.
That is important. It is now the family has their own thing, and they reflect on their yellows and their reds, and they create another unthinkable one, their own family development plan. Remember the national development plans and the state development plans and the municipal development, family development. And so we're getting to molecular medicine, the fourth industrial revolution. It's no longer X-ray. It is understanding the genetic molecular components of the disease, and everyone is different, and we can have focused, tailored diagnosis. In this case, self-diagnosis is worth gold. And then, of course, reading Albert Bandura, the psychologist from the University of Stanford, he says that for people to change, they have to answer two questions. Is it worth it, and can I do it? And that has to do with agency and self-efficacy. Is it worth it? Has to do with motivation. And can I do it? Has to do with skills. But he also says that agency is not only personal and individual. There has to be social agency. You have to have a group pressuring you, peer pressure, and group support. But that's not enough either. You need to have incentives in the system so that, but what we have found is that the way we go to each country, we are now in 53, 54 countries, working with 800 organizations. And we go to every country and we do the same exercise. We ask the people. The European Union recently asked us to go and work with the Roma people in Bulgaria, Romania, and Slovakia. So we go and work with them, and this is, what does it mean for you to be not poor? And they know like that. They just know. And once you have that, you can start working on, and then you develop also a bank of solutions, proven strategies that work in that country. Because there are Roma people who had a problem with teeth and fixed it. There are those who needed a wheelchair and got it. It's not, so all the indicators are actionable and achievable in the short term. So here, all of a sudden, wow. What does it mean? What is a world without poverty? When every family is green in everything. Is that possible? Yes. There is not a single indicator here that is not achievable in the short term. In 5 years, there is no family in the world that cannot, with support, fix their teeth, fix their toilet, double their income, etc. And Martin, so,
can I ask you a follow-up question on something? Yeah. There's a couple of things you just said I don't want to skip over because I feel like they're important. One of the things you said is, okay, agency and skills. So on the agency, you mentioned collective agency, social pressure. Can you share when you're working with communities, how do you do that? So do you work with an individual family, or do you work with, a number of families? How does that happen in practice?
We have a two theoretical framework. One of them is the integral theory. We understand that we have to take all the components of one's life at the same time. So we deal with individuals who are individuals and members of a collective at the same time. You and I, everybody in this room today, we are individuals and collective. And we also have an inside and an outside. So we have to combine people's behavior, the structure of the system where they live. Then these two things you can see. Then what you cannot see are the culture and intention. So when you walk into a favela or a poor neighborhood in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and you see a lady without teeth, you have to understand whether it is, why doesn't she have teeth? Is it because she doesn't brush her teeth? Is it because there are no dentists? So is it either a personal or is a collective thing, And this is very important. For example, I should be going to my, what's that thing that we guys have to do? The prostate, My wife says, "Oh, when are you going?" And I says, "I'm too busy," So I know I have to go, but I'm not going, right? Etc. So in any case, there is a man called Joseph Grenny who wrote a book called Influencer. I really recommend it to people here. And he talks on how to operationalize this psychology theory of agency and self-efficacy into operating change. And so this is very important. There is a famous educator in Brazil called Paulo Freire, and he wrote a book, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And in that book, he is talking to the left activists in Sao Paulo and Rio, mentioning that who were trying to organize them in rural labor unions. And he said, if the sugarcane cutters slaves don't become aware of their slavery, you can't liberate them. There has to be an internal process also. So raising, what he calls conscientization, So in any case, it's been a very beautiful journey, because can you imagine how much learning there is in every country? I mean, South Africa is identical and completely different than Colombia, right? And now we're starting working in rich countries like the UK and the US and Eastern Europe and Portugal, and they are completely different and identical to Ecuador.
Yeah, tell us some of the big learnings, Martin. What are some of the common learnings that you've had through doing this work around what it takes to develop agency? And then any surprises and differences that you've seen across contexts?
Well, many of the innovations come from other people seeing what, as I mentioned, that we ourselves don't see. For example, we were in Ecuador, that is the world's largest exporter of banana, okay? And they export free trade banana to Germany, okay? And they told me, we are tired of free trade because it costs us €1 a box, and we sell 300,000 boxes a month. And yet our banana growers are all poor. So fair trade, that used to be the last Coca-Cola in the desert, is not delivering. It's delivering fair trade. There is no slave labor. There are laws being respected. But so these people are developing no poverty banana or poverty-free banana. And then I'm working with Nestle, the chocolate and coffee company, and says, how about no poverty chocolate? And as certified not by an expensive consulting firm, but by the grower, because the technology, again, allows the growth. Can you imagine? And so can you imagine capitalism without poverty? And can you imagine if we persuade and convince the business community that their return on investment and their earnings are going to go up if as the poverty affecting their Walmart workers goes down? It's just amazing. You know, it was not supposed to happen, but it is happening. And I was talking to a friend at UNDP last week, and he said, you know, we really need to get together because the Sustainable Development Goals is all about inflation must be controlled. Employment, really? How is the thing? How? And now we know how. So, and another thing that I wanted to show, I wanted to show it to Wendy, that we are now, for example, working with the University of California, Irvine, and a PhD student there created an organization to create the human traffic stoplight. Because what's beautiful about the stoplight is that the indicator's perspective is very important. So the United Nations and the World Bank and the governments measure food security or financial inclusion. We thought that was the best thing, right? There is a new thing. There is an indicator that can be framed. We eat nutritious food, green. Sometimes we eat nutritious food, but sometimes we're too busy and we eat frozen pizza, yellow. In the past month, there have been nights where one of us went to sleep without eating, red. It's the perspective. And you, in the same block, you can have different indicators that would not have been captured by food security. The same thing with financial inclusion. That's what they want to measure. But the question is, we have family savings. We have a family budget. It takes into consideration the person and a world of beautiful opportunities just for the families. And so the name of my book, actually Gary was there, is Who Owns Poverty, or ¿Quién es dueño de la pobreza? And this book explains that journey. But as I was mentioning, now we have a new stoplight that is with 4 versions: for the teacher, for the student, for the parent, and for the principal. And so the same thing, for example, the student self-assesses. I know how to take notes. I keep my books in one place. I know when my exams are. The parent says, I ask my children, how are they doing? I know what grade my child is. You know, the teachers is, I know my students' different learning styles. I have a good communication with parents. So it's working well. We now have some 25 schools that we're piloting it. Hint, hint, Wendy. Let me know when you're ready, okay? It would be a fantastic way for all these great people who are educating to be able to engage the stakeholders in their own self-diagnosis, and then we develop a solutions bank.
Yeah,
so,
Martin, can I follow up on that one piece? Because what I'm hearing here is, first of all, it's a paradigm shift, which is incredible, right? It's a paradigm shift from top down to perspective. And it's not just one perspective, it's different perspectives. And then what I'm hearing you say is, it's actually increasing consciousness and awareness of both, you know, those who are most proximate to the challenges, but the others. The other piece that you just mentioned right now that I want to make sure we get into is then there's a solutions bank. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Now, where do the solutions come from? Do they come from the people? How do you collate them? How do you make sure that they spread? What does that, so there's a piece around agency, and then there's a piece around skills. So let's talk about the skills and solutions and what opportunities that opens up.
So basically we have 50 indicators grouped in 6 dimensions: income and employment, housing and infrastructure, education and culture, health and environment, organization and participation, and interiority and motivation, or mental health is the word that people like now. But for every issue, there is a solution. And not only because there are positive deviants, but there is a way to live in a slum in Bogota, Colombia, and to be poor, but send your kids to college. There are people who have done it. So there are strategies that work, best practices, etc. And the thing is that people are not aware of them, or people think it's not for them, or whatever. But so every country has a way of defining the indicators and the thresholds. For example, in my country, which is Paraguay, to be green in water means to have at least one water faucet of treated water in the yard. The neighbor says, she has a faucet, she has water. To have a well is to be yellow, and to have to bring it from somewhere else in a bucket on top of your head is to be red. But you go to northeastern Nigeria, and to have a well nearby is to be green in water. And in the United States, if you don't have hot water in the kitchen and in the bathroom, you are yellow in water. So every country has thresholds, but water is the indicator that, right? For example, I was talking with some young people in New Orleans, and they said, we differ. We don't have child labor here in this country. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's adapt it to New Orleans. He says, yeah, take away child labor, but put in youth incarceration. I said, what? Yeah. 1 out of 3 young men under the age of 25 goes to jail in New Orleans. What? So those are, every country, we have our own things, right? So in any case, in conclusion, technology allows a change in paradigm. Perspective is rationality. The emperor has no clothes. It's fun like crazy to work on the stoplight because every country is different, and they tell me the same thing. Oh, you don't understand. We in Colombia are so different. I said, really? Tell me more. Yes, we're so. And then we go through this exercise, right? The same thing in Eastern Europe. The same thing with the homeless in Los Angeles, and we're all the same. At the family level, we're all the same, and it's very interesting, very beautiful. So, in conclusion, I want to, before maybe people want to ask, it's been a beautiful journey. We're learning a lot. Our partners, as I mentioned, can you imagine the human trafficking community when they discover that the key is that the trafficked woman fill her self-assessment and not just the police or the social workers. In some parts of Los Angeles, the social workers are not permitted to share their information with the homeless. I said, what? So, it's just, and finally, I was with a expert from the World Bank in Bratislava, Slovakia, and he came to me and he said, do you have pipe? I said, excuse me? Yeah, do you have pipe? No, I don't have pipe. Then why would you go into a poor village and even bring the subject of water? I said, that's not the point. So in any case, or I asked some other friends from the World Bank. I love the World Bank, by the way. Don't but I asked the World Bank, why don't you measure subjective indicators like motivation? And they said, we don't have the data. But you realize, of course, we realize that motivation is as important. So why don't you measure it? Because we only deal with census data. And why do you only deal with census data? Because we're the World Bank. Oh. So you, because you are the World Bank, you have reduced humans to $3 per person per day. And so I of course, we're all complementary. So basically what we're doing right now is taking, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals and reframe them from the perspective of the family household. And we can achieve the same, but can you imagine if you mobilize the whole world community to overcome poverty? And so thank you for this opportunity, and we need help. so anybody who has ideas are welcome to come and we're looking for friends to have fun with. So
wonderful. Well, thank you, Martin, so much. There's so much rich stuff in here. So I actually want to open it up for questions now, because I think there's a lot that you've shared. Let's see. I see some questions coming in the chat. Wendy, I see your hand up, so maybe we'll start with you for your questions. And was that an accident or? All right.
I do have a question. I was just not taking the time to write it in the chat, but I will ask one, but then go to the chat. I'm just still, Martín, despite our various conversations and all, trying to get my head fully around your incredible work. I'm assuming, so it sounds like people taking these self-diagnostic tools, it's the process of that in and of itself develops agency. But I guess it's a question around, one, how you go about inspiring lots of people to take these self-diagnostic tools, and secondly, whether you've found that it takes anything other than taking those in order to foster the agency that you're working to develop.
For example, in this thing of nutritious food, because the green is always available, they know that is the optimum. It is a locally adjusted desirability. So they see that, and then they start comparing and contrasting with that reality. So that is awareness raising. Second, we always work with organizations that have the social capital and who are already working with these organizations. So you go to a company, for example, we're working with a cattle ranch or a mattress factory here in Paraguay, and the head of HR already knows the personnel. So you work with somebody that they trust, and so it's very easy, and it takes 20 minutes, but sometimes it can take an hour because people love rereading it and says, wow. And then some people say, is this it? I can do this. Just give me a year and I'll come back to you. And some other people get stuck because some other people say, yes, I really need to have a vegetable garden in the back of the house. And then they get lazy, then they get, they procrastinate, then so the poverty stoplight is a measurement, a poverty measurement tool and a coaching methodology. The coaching is as important, the hand holding, the yes, we can do it. It's that. So all we have to do is just try it and see, what comes up. Where are you located, Wendy?
At the moment, I'm outside of New York City.
Okay, because for example, we've been working a few years with Cornell Extension Service, working with some counties in upstate New York. So yeah. Okay.
So the people giving the coaching are the same people who, say, the trusted person you said, who like know their people. Is that right?
Yes, or somebody or a family extensionist or a social worker that we have trained. Yes.
Okay.
For example, with the Salvation Army working with the homeless population in Southern California, what was really beautiful is we spent about 2 weeks adjusting the indicators to the reality of the homeless people. And then right before we started deploying the tool, I asked them, can you take it for yourselves? And they said at the beginning, no, we don't need, we're all fine. No, please take it. No, Martin, we're fine. Please take it. Okay, we'll take it. And then one social worker said, oh my God, I am red in family budget. And the homeless person that I work with, she has a family budget. She sleeps in her car. I sleep in an apartment, but I can't pay my bills just like her. It's really interesting. And so among us here in this room, I'm sure there are a few yellows and a few reds, right? Like my going to the prostate analysis that I try to postpone as much as I can, etc. No?
Yeah, that's so powerful, Martin. And then we see the complexity and nuances of people instead of putting people in categories and buckets. One follow-on question there, and then I'm going to turn it over to Howard to voice your question in the chat. But you mentioned these social workers who are working with these people. Do you have families who've now gone through the stoplight supporting other families? Like, is there a lot of peer-to-peer, or that's not happening?
A lot of peer-to-peer, and we have different strategies. One of the 100 strategies that we have is competitions. We have gamification because, for example, we tell them, okay, take a picture of your mouth, of your smile, or take a picture of your kitchen or of your latrine. You have 5 months to fix it. And then we posted it in Facebook. And if you get more likes, you win. So people, you know, these people in television, you turn on the television at 2 o'clock in the morning and there is a fat man showing his fat figure next to his new figure, right? People love to see the before and show the before and after. And so there are many things, but gamification, competitions, recognition. I asked a woman then, why did you just now fix your bathroom? Nobody would have noticed. So people want to be noticed, and every person is different for every indicator. So, but it's a beautiful journey.
Thank you, Martin. Howard, I'd love for you to come off mute. You've got a great question in the chat. If you wouldn't mind coming off and voicing that, that would be great. And please, everyone else, either just raise your hand or put your question in the chat. We'd love to hear a few more questions.
Hey, Martin, nice to see you again.
Hi, Howard.
For everybody here on the line, Martin and I have known each other for about 40 years, so we're all friends, so I didn't want to miss this. Martin, I had a question. You're listening to you talk about most of the data. It's very observable. It's concrete things. Do you have water? Do you not? But no, then
no, it's do you.
Not you, the people rating themselves. I understand.
Yeah, we have water.
Right, I have water. But then you also talked about subjective or qualitative data. Can you tell us a little bit about how do individuals define the qualitative data that applies to them in their case?
Well, for example, here is, we have enough income, we have family savings, but here is this, we control our emotions, we consider others when we do things, we have no violence in our family. So we work with a community in defining what does it mean to what does it mean to control your emotions in the context of South Africa. And that's what Lara Berg has done, and they word it and they use pictures that are intuitive. So any South African woman will look and say, that's me, or that's my husband, or that's that, So there are definitions out there for subjective indicators of well-being.
So let me just, so if I'm hearing you, the stoplight documents are the same, but the interpretation is locally driven.
Yes,
for those relationship-based types of things.
And the thresholds are, the thresholds are defined locally also. But
Cool.
mental health, right now, for example, there was a crisis in Paraguay because a student threatened to shoot his classmates. Just like, they see this on television, and, so we have copycats. And so the Minister of Education called me and says, Martin, do you have mental health indicators in your education software? I said, yeah, let's meet urgently, because this is an early warning system for parents, for teachers, for principals, So yeah, but it is something that that can also, I know with Gary Scherer, who is here, we've been talking about what does it mean for people who are no longer poor? We have to adjust this dashboard to the middle class, right? And there are middle class dramas, when you overcome poverty, you walk into the middle class and welcome to the world. Oh my God. Now you have to worry about the Joneses and what car you need to know and what university you're going to go. And those things can be even more stressful than, and there's, Radha, you're the chief here.
Yes, I'm gonna, there's a couple good.
You answered the question. Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, Sarah, for your question. And I think it's great to just hear the localization around this, how, again, there's similar parameters, but what it looks like looks different in different contexts. There's a couple of other great questions in the chat, so I'm just going to get right into them. Gary, you already mentioned here, maybe you can come off mute, introduce yourself, and share your question for Martin. And I know you've been exposed to this in South Africa as well. So
yeah, very much so. Hi, Martin, long time.
Hi, Gary.
I'm asked the question about national uptake. South Africa has been a delight for us to be involved in, where there's now over 130 NGOs and even governments, and 15, I think, corporates. Huge shifts happening, more and more people coming. We haven't promoted it, they just keep coming to us, even government. And so for me, when we first heard about the tool and we got involved, I remember saying to you, this is a national thing. If governments listen to their people through this, they can actually shift everything. And that leads to the SDGs as well, which is 95 years behind and completely out of touch. So I think this movement needs to go into more of which countries have enough kind of clout by what they've done to take it further. Are there any other countries outside of Paraguay and South Africa who've got into that kind of movement where it's affecting a lot more than just the individual families?
Good question. Here in Paraguay, I'm writing a book called No Poverty Paraguay, a workbook for step by step. I am writing actually the methodology. How do you go about it step by step? And Ecuador is coming up. Colombia is coming up. But and I mentioned this conversation I had with UNDP, but we are not there yet at a global scale. COVID stopped us, so we lost 3 years there. But more and more, like we have, for example, 6 organizations in Colombia, from coffee growers to flower growers. So yes, you're right. We need to work on systems change. We need to work on national policy, and we just need to. And we have now a few more and more research. For example, the reason why the European Union asked us to take this program to the Roma people in these Bulgaria, Romania, Slovakia was for no other reason that somebody wrote an article where they put the word aspirations in it. And they were looking for aspirations, and bingo. But, sometimes we need to incorporate academia, researchers writing papers, because if it gets published, it exists. And so the United Nations, the World Bank, all those people, we need to keep working with the African Development Bank, the governments. We're working a lot with municipal governments, but national governments, we're waiting.
Are there any other strong countries that have movements that have grown substantially?
Ecuador is one. We're working with the business community in Portugal also. So we're now in 50 places in the US. So we're moving there.
And
But
Martin,
national policy uptake, we're still working on that.
Martin, in the countries where you're actually seeing a movement for change happening, what's enabling that? Is it again, just hard work, persistent over time? Is it that you've been working with different stakeholders? Yeah, where you're seeing it get real traction, what's enabling that? And then Reed, I'm going to come to your question right after this.
It's strange. It's random, One day, for example, I'll get a visit here in Paraguay, and a person says, "Hi, I'm the vice president of the Red Cross in Colombia. We want to take the stoplight to the demilitarized areas of the FARC." Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when people get exposed to it,
So it's just so my job is to talk to as many people, 50% trying to sell them the idea, but also 50% listening to what other people are doing, because they also see things that one does not see. As I mentioned, this banana thing, I would have never thought of fair trade, and this human trafficking, I would have never thought of human trafficking. So just so many opportunities, no?
Yeah, and that gets to Reed's question. Reed, I wonder if you want to come off and just share what you do and your question, because I think you have a similar question around how would you get started around using this? So Reed, if you don't mind introducing yourself and your question.
Hey everyone, so nice to see you. Martín, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been incredibly inspiring. My name is Reed Schaefer-Ray, founder and CEO of a new nonprofit called Stop, which is a fellowship for young people to become leaders in their home communities in lower income countries dealing with brain drain. It's a 12-month paid full-time fellowship. We're launching it publicly in August. And my question was, as much as possible, I've been inspired by people first and have been interested in how to catalyze collective leadership through our program and trying to spread capacity building and sustainable development initiatives through the work the fellows will be doing. So I'm sure this is something that you think a lot about, but how can an organization like ours easily adopt the teachings and the work to spread it far and wide?
Well, very beautiful. Up to now, the Peace Corps, the US Peace Corps, they go into communities with a solution. And they did not have a mechanism to consult. Now there is easy, technology, right? Everybody has Facebook, everybody has WhatsApp. So we would love to work with you and to help your young leaders to understand that, to do it for themselves, and then to do it with the families, because the grouped needs of the families are leadership opportunities. Leadership in guiding people across the desert from Egypt to the promised land. That's a leadership role, right? Sometimes you have to push people. Sometimes you have to pull people. But the leader also needs to have tools. And this could be a good tool for your fellows to understand. And we can, of course, adapt it to the type of communities that they're working with. But the thing about community, I was mayor of the capital of Paraguay, and 20 years ago, something like that. And I did not have this tool. This tool is only 10 years old. So I only knew how to do community projects. Okay? Now we penetrated the community floor, and we can go into the family households. Unthinkable. Because before you would say, well, how is one social worker going to have 200 files with 50 indicators each one? She will never be able to manage. But now it's all here in the telephone. So now we have community projects that are the addition of the family problem. So you can go to a community and you can have a dental health program for 37 families, a water for 150 families, a family violence program for 15 families, and an income program for 300 families. And you can manage all of these things simultaneously. So let's work. I'm going to, let's work, and I'm going to put my email or are you going to share my email, Rada, with everybody?
Yeah, we can share that. You're welcome to share it here. We'll share it in the follow-up as well. So yeah, if you want, we can do that as well.
Yeah. So it's Martín at povertystoplight.org.
Perfect. And we'll send that in the follow-up as well. But Martín, there's another great question that I want to make sure we get to. You know, when we think about social change, there's a lot around individual agency, individual responsibility, but there's also systemic factors that need to change. So there was a great question in the chat, you know, curious whether you've seen increases in individual agency ultimately push on the system to create important system changes. Have you seen that? And, you know, can you share examples
Of course,
that?
but it
Yeah.
depends on different families. So as I mentioned, a woman may not have teeth. For one woman, it is a structural problem. For her neighbor, it is a behavior problem. For her next door neighbor, it is a cultural problem. And for the other neighbor, it's a fear thing. So it's all under, you know, so, but yes, depends on the indicator. Sometimes it is easier to work on the systems thing, but at the end of the day, it's the woman who has to go and fix her teeth. So at the end of the day, if you can empower heads of family, you know, and this is another thing, we opted to have the family household as our unit of analysis. We know that it would be beautiful if we could have 6 stoplights for every 6 members of a family. But basically what we're defining our unit of analysis, those who eat and sleep under the same roof. And then in general, we take care of everybody there.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's
Yeah.
Jeffrey Ash. Hi, Jeff.
I think we might have time for one more question.
You're
So
muted.
Martin, good to see you after all these years. Yeah.
I know.
So,
COVID was terrible. COVID was terrible.
yeah. But I had a question about the Peace Corps thing that came up, because as an ex-Peace Corps volunteer, and all of us go in with our plans, our ideas, and it's usually a complete disaster. So this idea of flipping the paradigm around and starting with learning, introducing the poverty stoplight to the communities we work in would be a tremendous first step,
Yes.
and would actually enable these people to be a lot more effective.
Yeah. So, but what you're saying, your savings groups.
Absolutely.
Yes, we have 4,500 village banks where we work with, and they have become wonderful users of the stoplight. And you know, they and of course, the income, the monetary poverty is the easiest poverty. That is another thing about Rada that you asked me, what did you learn? That's when a person says, oh, I need to make more money, you have 50% of the solution there, right? Or where the family says, oh my God, I did my stoplight and I realized with my husband that we did not have a family budget, that we worked really, really hard from Monday to Friday. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we asked takeout, and we had a takeout, and all the money went on pizzas and hamburgers and soft drinks. And when we saw the numbers in our family budget, and we said, oh my God, we can, you know, use our budget, save money, and build that additional bedroom for the children. So these are little minuscule things, but it really, as I mentioned, the Sustainable Development Goals were meant for governments. Remember, they started with the millennial goals, and then they went to sustainable, but they never thought that you could involve the families of the world. Now, you know, it also, so you go into the Sustainable Development Objectives website there, and you know, and you say poverty, no, zero poverty, and you go in and it says increase welfare programs. Oh, really? Is that how you no? So now we have something that is granular, that is that you can touch, that the families. So how can we use influencers, Elon Musk, Twitter, gamification, artificial intelligence to mobilize this thing? It's a beautiful challenge, you know.
Yeah.
And so
Martin.
Reed, we have to do great things together. And where are you located, Reed?
I live in Washington, D.C.
Okay, so Ward 8. Let's go to Ward 8 right there, and we can start with local organizations, you know.
Perfect.
There's one more question. I think our hand's been up for a while, so I don't want to lose it. Tamena, if you got a quick question, and Martin, a quick response, and then we'll wrap it up. But I don't want to lose the energy here while you've got it.
Thank you, Rhoda. Martin, it's great to meet you again. We met at WPI, Mr. Polytechnic Institute, and then I was glad I read your book, Who Owns the Poverty, during my first semester of my graduate classes. My question is, because it's already raised by the Peace Corps volunteer, I'm also a returned Peace Corps volunteer served in Ethiopia 2016-2018. I'm coming back to graduate school because I wanted to integrate the science and the technology for the development work, especially for community, global South community, which is least developed countries. So I'm planning to go back to again and then redo it as a response Peace Corps volunteer. It's a kind of like more technical and then scientific kind of a background. I wanted to apply it in the back home in Africa. So what do you suggest, and then how should I apply that?
Write to me, and we can send you a demo, and we can start adapting it. We have a version for Tanzania, for Nigeria, for, you know, we were recently in Morocco. We have adopted it to, so, you know, we would love to work with you. It's just so beautiful to be able to really understand. And you know, I think it's a very beautiful experience. And I want to take this opportunity to thank all our partners. And I see Lara there and Gary working so hard, really committed to their people, and knowing that there is no substitute to empowering the head of a household. You know, there just isn't. And the good news is that all the mothers are the same. You know, and so you have a head of household who empowered is unbeatable. You know, because they're doing what they're doing without resources, without tools, but empower that woman with information and aspirations and agency. You know, so we're lucky to have that. And I know you guys are all very modern, and it's 12 o'clock. I know.
Well, a big thank you to you, Martin. I think that's such a great note to end on. You know, what's unbeatable, the empowered head of a household. And thank you for the work that you do and for sharing us. And this was such a lively discussion, because I think there's so much inspiration people are taking away. So big thank you to you for your insights. What we'll do, as we always do, share out a summary and a video of this talk. And Martin will include, if you don't mind, your contact information in case others want to try this in their context. And coming up next in August, we'll have another People First talk. This is going to be another incredible one. It's with Safina Hussain, who heads Educate Girls in India. She's doing incredible work to bring education and leadership to girls in the most remote communities. They've had, 90% of girls are out of school, in school now, so incredible results. And it's important for women and girls leadership, but there's also lessons for anyone in other sectors, because they've done real incredible work about partnering both with the government and communities to get to sustainable and scalable change. So definitely sign up for that talk. We'll send out more about that in the next week. Thank you again, Martin, and for all of you for joining us, and see you next time.
Thank you, and write to me, and let's work and play together.